Hi everyone, today I'm going to share with you my experience on how to set PBO2 settings inclusive of curve optimizer and curve shaper, my style. Okay, as often some of you have sent me email or even communicating through Reddit asking me this question. Cleo, those reviews that I've done on the motherboard, can I make use of those configuration? My answer to you, no. As each individual processor, right, have its own significant special bin. The better bin it is, the better you can overclock or to undervolt. But for this content, I'm just going to share with you based on matching the configuration PBO2, curve optimizer and curve shaper according to AMD specs. Now with me right now, I'm using a 950X3D. Now this applies not only to this processor, but it applies to all the 9000 series processor. Okay, and I'll be using a Nova X870E ASRock motherboard. Now first thing you do when you piece up all the stuff in the system, you will need to install Windows first, and do not do any settings except enabling. Right now I'm showing you under OC Tweaker your RAM profile, which I know that this is Expo. See, I've reset it. Other than that, don't touch, leave it as it is. Next, set the fan for your palm and such. See, right now my fan, my radiator fan, I would to put performance. Then I do have the VRM fan, which I will put to performance. Then for the palm, you can either leave it, but I'll just set to PWM, but at full speed. Okay, once you've done this, right, you just save, exit and load to Windows, which I'm going to do right now. So this will take some time. Now it's loading Windows. Now for the very first time when you do any configuration in UEFI, right, it will take some time for Windows to load, but that is only the initial start. Once you've done all the settings, right, it will boot faster. So just bear with me. Okay, right now it's booted. I will just log in. Now, first thing to do before you do anything is to download the application called Adrenaline, or should I say Adrenalina, from AMD, which you can obtain over here. Okay, just type AMD chipset drivers. Download this application, okay, which is meant for Windows 10 and 11, the drivers. This is very important, okay, in order for you to work your processor together with the motherboard. And this is the application, which you can see on my lower right. Adrenaline Edition, which is going to take some time to load. This is the first thing that you will need to check. Now while it's loading, right, okay, this is what you'll see. Make sure that your chipset over here, the driver software, is up to date. You can click here, manage updates, to check, see if it's up to date. Now I didn't install this AMD privacy view, which I don't think is necessary for me. Just make sure that this is, you know, without any downloads. If there is, right, there will be something like this with a download bucket over at this section where it say installed. Make sure you install that. Once that's done, right, reboot your system. Once this is up to date, second thing that you need to take note is to go to the Windows update. Okay, check for updates. And while checking, right, also check on your device manager. Make sure all these are not with any exclamation. If they are, right, just go down to your motherboard model. This is a Nova X870E. Okay, just go to the support page. All right, and click on download. Download whatever drivers that you need. Now for your info, right, by default when the motherboard boot up, right, it has this auto updater prompt. So you can just update through that. But you miss that, right? Just come to this page and download whatever necessary drivers that you need in order to clear all the exclamation mark on your device. So make sure all these are clean, right? Without an exclamation. So once it's done, right, you can now close it. Next thing to do is to download, is to take note on the processor. Okay, there are no Windows update, good. On the specification of your processor, which I'm using a 9950X3D, I will go to AMD site to check on the specification. As you can see over here, general specification, click on it. Things that I need to take note so that I will not hurt the processor. I will scroll down to this section. Now, as you can see over here, right, I recopy down. But just to show you, take note on things like the first priority, which is the default TDP. This is the recommended wattage for this processor to run, which is at 170. Okay, I know this processor can go beyond that, but for my take, I will always keep it as 170 watt as recommended. I'm more on the preserve side. So if you choose to, have it run at 280, 300, this is up to you. But I can tell you that you're going to degrade your processor. In a long run, right, your processor will just die off faster. Okay, I would prefer to run at recommended default voltage, which is 170, and the base clock. Okay, meaning to say at default when it runs, right, base clock will be at 4.3, and the boost clock, okay, not always, it only random pick up when it sees the opportunity, which is 5.7. So I took this down over here. See the base clock, and with this, very important, I will just put down here. Okay, now once you've done this, right, next download the Ryzen Master. This is the utility to catch some of the default settings, which I will show you later. And for full explanation on how to make use of this Ryzen Master, right, which I don't use, if you choose to use this to do your undervolting and overclocking, right, there is a document page. Now, all this URL, right, I will leave in my description so that you can refer to. And this will tell you the interface, the explanation on what Ryzen Master is. Okay. So this is what you will see. Sorry, too fast. So we explain to you in depth what are these for. Now, first thing, load Ryzen Master. You will get this when you load. Okay, this is the page. Click on settings, set this to on. Okay, do not show warning messages. Meaning to say, every time you click, right, you give you a prompt. So that's kind of irritating. I'll just click it. I just uncheck it, or should I say enable do not show the warning sign. Apply. Once you've done this, right, click on OK, then click on advanced view. Now on this advanced view, there are things that you need to take note. By default from AMD, right, to run at 170 watt, okay, recommended wattage, as I mentioned to you over here, very important. In order to run at this, right, they are making use of these readings over here, the PPT, the TDC, and the EDC, which I already written down here. Default PPT is 200, TDC is 160 ampere, and EDC is at 225 ampere. Now, as to briefly describe what are these for, PPT, okay, to me is just the primary storage of the wattage from your PSU, meaning you say you allocate the amount of wattage to be stored in PPT. And with this say, right, user specific, meaning to say you are the one who allocate the amperage, because this wattage will convert to amperage and to DC 12 volt. So what it does is actually you declare, okay, having this 200 watt, I am going to allocate 225 ampere to draw off from this 200 watt. Okay, this is a secondary storage, whereby the final showdown, right, is upon the user declaration. Yes, I'm having 225 ampere, but I'm not going to use everything. Instead, I'm going to use 160 ampere. So having to say this, right, this configuration is catered for 170 watt. And how do I prove it? Well, run Cinebench and firm up. Now, I'm not using a discrete graphic card, so that I can stress on the integrated graphic on the processor. So I'll run this. As you can see over here, right, all these figures, right, is pulled from hardware info. Now, take a look when I run Cinebench. Okay, I'll just set it this way. On hardware info, right, you will see that the CPU package power. Okay, probably I'll just show you here. See, these are pretty small. That's why I place it over here so that you can see. So if you were to bring it down and see, right, there is this power package. See this one? It says CPU power package, but it is not calculating the cost. Instead, it's calculating the controller that controls the PCIe lane, the USB, and etc. together on your processor, because your processor do control those PCIe lanes and the M.2 slot, inclusive of the some of the USB plug and such. So this is the overall wattage. Okay, as you can see here, this is the overall wattage, which is not on the core. Else, for Ryzen Master, right, why I ask you to download this is because you can see the CPU power. This is only based on the cost that is drawing the power and not other thing else. So this is what you should be looking for when you do the tune. Make sure that it doesn't exceed 170 watt. Okay, in practical, yes, you can stretch above 170 watt, but as mentioned to you, right, more current provided on your processor, right, you are degrading the processor and it will not prolong. So take note on this. Now, having all this, right, okay, I will take down the scores, the basic scores. For one run, to take a look, what's the score by default? I'll just put the scores over here. Gonna take up some time. Okay, 39K 970. Alright, this is the score from Cinebench by default. Okay, probably I put Cinebench. Score. Okay, now you can start to configure the PBO2. I'm just going to restart to BIOS. This will take some time. Okay, gonna load. Now in BIOS, as mentioned to you, you have done only the expo profile and your fan profile, which I've shown you. Now you can set the undervolting. For me, I prefer undervolting more than overclocking, because I find no point overclocking it. As undervolting it, right, it will exceed the performance too. So first thing you do, right, under OC tweaker, this is what I normally would do. I will scroll down all the way. Now for ASRock board, I am very wary about this SoC Encore OC voltage. It is set as 1.2 by default. You do not need 1.2, okay? You can run at 1.1. Then click on external voltage settings. Set the offset of your vCore to 100. For sure, ASRock can run at -100, no problem. What it does is actually, let's say your processor required to have a vCore of 1.35 default to run a 5 gig. When you do the offset, right, what it does is it tells the motherboard saying that, hey, I need to run at 5 gig, but do I require 1.35? Then the motherboard will calculate. No, you don't need that. You only need let's say 1.19. So this offset is actually doing that. It will reduce down the default B core, which will reduce the thermal temperature. Next thing I'll do is the load line calibration. Now, for ASRock, it's the most easiest way to tune. You have only 3 lines, see level 1, level 2, and level 3, whereby the higher it is, right, as written over here, right, the higher it is, you make use of higher voltages. The lower it is, you make use of lesser voltages. So for me, I'll just put it level 2. In between high and low will be just nice. Set this as level 2. That's it. Case closed. Followed by under advanced. Okay. Now for ASRock motherboard, I'm not too sure about the rest of the motherboard. Have not tried yet. Under AMB CBS. Okay. I will set this SMU common option. With this CPP dynamic preference call, now it's under auto. And when it's under auto, right, what it does is actually for the 9950X and the 9950X3D, you have 2 CCD. Okay, first 8 core and the next 8 core, and one of these cores, right, having the cache. So what it does is that if you set to auto, right, you are letting Windows OS to determine whether to load, make use of those CCD when it's loading games, which is making use of the cache, or not using them when you're working. Okay, instead of using the software to control it, right, I'll just open up everything. I'll just put cache so that it doesn't go through your software application to determine. It will just be cache on all 16 cores. Though this is taking a bit of electrical current, right, but I should say power consumption, right, but it's not really that great. Plus, it speed up the time so that you don't need to have Windows OS to determine, whether to use the cache or not to use the cache. So I just leave it open. Set this to cache. Now, if you do not like it, right, you do not like the power consumption, right, you can just put it to auto. Okay, for me, I'll just put to cache. Next thing to do, okay, I'll exit this. Go to AMD overclocking. Okay, set on accept. First thing to do, only for ASRock motherboard, alright? On SoC, uncore OC mode. This is for your Infinity Fabric on your RAMs. Instead of letting the the software to determine what's the performance, right, just enable it so that you know that, okay, at all times it's at performance mode. Okay, you don't have to determine to calculate whether should I use performance mode or not to. So this is to tell the system, hey, don't have to think. I just want it to enable because I know that these RAMs can do it. Once it's done, right, go to Precision Boost Overdrive. Now this you have to pay attention of what I'm doing. On the auto, right, just click on it and set to advanced. You have all this. I will first start off with just a standard configuration that I always use on Curve Optimizer and Curve Shaper. Only on the 9000 series, which is the 9950X or the 9950X3D, having dual CCD. On Curve Optimizer, a lot of instruction will say set to all cores, set it to negative, and pull as much as possible, right? Well, I don't do that. I will do a shuffle in between 30, or should I say in between the number 10 to 30. Okay, I'll set to per CCD because this is a dual CCD processor. If you are using non-dual CCD, right, only one CCD, right, you can use all core. By all means, not a problem. But do not set the value to negative 30, which in term, right, okay, what this does is just to show you something. Assuming that, okay, this one, no, this one, okay. Now, assuming that the first line, right, is the default current that's running, the voltage that's running, by setting the curve optimizer, right, you're setting another curve just to pull down the whole line, okay, not to use up so much voltage. So that's the reason why curve optimizer can reduce your temperature. So having to say this, right, this stretch over here, right, from the first line to the second line, right, think it as a rubber band, okay, or elastic band. If you stretch it too much, it will just snap. So I would say that, let's say this is at 0 and this is at 30. I will set it as around 15 or 20. Do not stretch all the way to 30. Some of you even stretch to the extent to 40 to 45. In long term run, right, your processor will not be healthy because it's like it's trying to grab more current and you're suffocating it, as in like not giving it enough juice to run. So make sure that, you know, set it as a moderate point. Now back to the precision overdrive where I talk about the curve optimizer. Now as mentioned to you, if your processor is only on one CCD, don't set it to 30, right? I would say moderate 20. Then run the system, see whether it can run Cinebench and such with no crashes. If it doesn't, right, then you can increase probably 25. My max will be up to 25, okay, for single CCD. But for dual CCD, right, I'll just put per CCD. I will not run anything below 20. So I have the first CCD 0 as 20, and the next set of CCD, which is from the 8 core to the 16 core, right? Okay, from 1 to 8 is the strongest core. I can use 20, magnitude minus 20. But for the next 9 to the 16 core, right, I will set it to 15. Okay, giving it some slack because those are the weaker cores. Once it's done, right, come to the curve shaper. Now, curve shaper, I'll explain to you later what is actually going on, but these are my standard. I know that this application, okay, probably I will explain. Now, as you can see here, there are lots of points over here. In fact, it's categorized as minimum frequency, low frequency, mid frequency, high frequency, and max frequency. All this frequency, right, you have 3 points, which is low, medium, and high. Same goes to the low frequency and such. When the processor is pulling the current, the amperage to run the clock speed, right, minimum and low normally I will not touch because it's the least area that it will touch on. I will start from the medium frequency. Now, having this point, right, low, mid, and high, since this is at the midpoint, okay, what I mean by midpoint, okay, take example, I'm doing mid, high, and max frequency. Okay, back to the chart that I'm talking about. So when you are doing, okay, assuming this is your curve optimizer that you've done, which is 20, first CCD is minus 20 and the second CCD is minus 15, right, at this line. At this line, right, they are split into 5 points: minimum, low, mid, high, and maximum. And at each point, right, let's say at the midpoint here, you have total of 3 points to pull. So this will fine tune this short period of line. So this is actually what I meant by the frequency. Then once you've done that, right, once you understand that, right, you can start to do the curve shaper. So as my standard, right, take for example the first mid frequency at low temperature. Okay, when you enable, you can set it to negative so that you are reducing the load line calibration. Load line calibration to have lower temperature. The max is at 30. Okay, but I wouldn't want to do that. As mentioned to you, I like to do it gradually. So the max that I will go is 20, in between 10 and 30. Same goes to this, which is the mid temperature of the mid frequency. So all this frequency, right, I will set it to minus 20. Okay, to make you understand. Because this is the initial start where you start to pull. Then when it extends further, right, touching on to the next level, which is the high frequency, I will enable to, but I will lower down by 5 points, means -15. Apply same to everything. These are all gradual, gradual pulling, not to the extent. If you to set this, all 2020, right, you're actually, again, just like the elastic band or the rubber band that you pull, right, if you extend too much, it will just snap. So you have to loosen some slack. Then same goes to the max frequency. You have 3 point again. Now I lower it further to 10. Okay. I always hit the wrong button. So sorry about this. Curve shaper. Going to the last one, which is 10. So as you can see here, right, now look at this section here where it says max frequency. Okay, from here it's all 10. Double check again, and they are negative value, all right, where you have the word negative over here. Then you check on the high frequency, which is from here to here on top. Let's see, -15, -15, -15. Okay, where it stops on high frequency, that's correct. Then double check on the mid frequency. See, on the low is 20, medium is 20, etc. Now don't get confused with the mid and high and low. Just remember mid frequency with 3 temperature. So all this frequency, right, the 3 frequency, you will have to set the magnitude, and don't pull too much. These are my settings that you can go. Once you have done this, right, okay, this is the standard. I know that this system can run with all these settings, which you can make use of this. Now in the event, let's say you are unable to, right, then probably at the curve shaper, right, you can reduce this number by 15 or by 15. Okay, then followed by the next, which is over here, the high frequency, set it to 10. Okay, and so forth. I'm not going to mess up my readings, so just to tell you that you can do these changes. Okay, or if this doesn't work, right, even have the lowest value as in like the mid frequency as 10, 5 and such, right, or maybe at 15 you can't run, and such, then you can do on your curve optimizer. Instead of having 2015, right, set it to 1510. Right, this is how it works. So it works hand in hand. So with this say, right, I've done my curve optimizer and curve shaper. Now coming to the PBO limits, whereby I mentioned to you, okay, if you let it auto, right, it's gonna run. See, one thing good about ASRock, they will talk about it. Load the AMD default. And what's the AMD default? Which is this. These are the settings. It will load according to this. Next, disable, totally don't use it. Okay, I wouldn't want to run this. And then next will be motherboard. Now, this is whereby a lot of YouTubers will encourage you guys to do it. Okay, set to motherboard. Now, assuming that I have not done curve optimizer and the curve shaper, right, to pull down lesser wattage and current, right, see what happens if I were to just run this. Okay, probably I should just, set it to disable and set all this to auto and let you see the run. So at all times, do not run the PBO limits having it to declare as motherboard. Okay, right now I'm just going to save this without any curve optimizer configuration, without any curve shaper configuration. I exit and save. All right, I'm just going to run the Cinebench and Firmark in a short while, just to let you see the CPU power. Right, taking some time because after you have configured, right, you will do the RAM training timing again, verification again and such before it load into Windows. So this is going to take some time. All right, loading into Windows. Now again, after you've done the configuration, right, Windows will take reaction. When you boot, right, it will verify what you have done on your configuration. It will take time, so be patient. Then subsequently, if your configuration are fixed, right, Windows will not verify, you will just boot, and it's much faster. Now I boot into Windows. Now, as you see, that I've only set the offset setting, the load line calibration, the SoC Infinity Fabric core for my RAMs, right, and also to set the PBO limits as motherboard. You will see over here on Ryzen Master. Okay, see, if you set to motherboard, right, see what happened to PPT. 1000 watt, TDC 335, and EDC 1000 ampere, as compared to the default. As you can see over here, see the default PPT, by right it should be 200 watt, this should be 160 ampere, and this should be 225 ampere, which all these figures are way above. And mind you, no curve optimizer is being done. So right now I'm just going to run Firmark and Cinebench. Okay, let me just run this, and in the meantime run Cinebench. See what happened. Alright, I'm just going to do 10 minutes just to let it run, but I'll not run for long. Okay, right now it's actually running. Take a look. From 170, you're running 205 watt most of the time. Okay, power package 230 and above. So imagine that, yes, it can run very nicely, and you know, you can just continue on. The temperature is not really that affecting much. Okay, let me just show you the temperature. As you can see, oh, it's pretty cool. I can run, no problem. Yes, this is very deceiving. Okay, temperature doesn't tell you everything, but the CPU power, as I mentioned to you, the overall is drawing this based on the fact that the processor is also controlling the PCIe lane, the M.2 slot, and your USB. So this is the total consumption, which is 235 watt. But on the core itself, right, as recommended on the website to run at 170 watt. But right now you have gone way out, which is 30 watt more. So prolonged period of run, right, you're going to hurt your processor. Okay, and of course, if you want to stay at this, yes, fantastic, you're going to have a very good result. Okay, let me just let it run. So this is actually motherboard settings. Okay, and the wattage drawn is 200. No, it's hang on. Okay, let me take down the result first. The result on Cinebench is 41475. Cinebench. See, you're having very good result. Okay, the temperature is okay, but the voltage, as I mentioned to you, right, you went above 170 watt, which right now I'm just going to take the reading. Okay, where is it? Okay, down here. So see, I'll take it to the max, 206 watt, 207 watt. Okay, 206 watt. You have 30 plus watt as compared to the default, which for me, this is definitely not a good run. And furthermore, right, if I were to run this in a prolonged period of time, right, look at the graph, see, over here you can see it's jagged. So this is not very healthy, whereby you are allowing the motherboard to keep on pushing up the current and to enforce more voltages to your processor, which is not very healthy. Okay, now coming to my style, right, the finale, how I do the adjustment. I'm going to boot to BIOS again. Now this is going to take some time again, bear with me. So as you can see out there, right, for YouTubers, they mentioned, oh, just set to motherboard, declare by motherboard and let it run. Pull whatever you can so long there's enough cooling. Yeah, true enough, there's enough cooling to cool down your processor, but don't forget, whatever is working on your processor, right, are the current, which is actually 100, supposedly should be 170 watt tolerance, but you have induced more wattages to your processor. So that's actually a very bad thing. Now, to my settings, right, how I do it. As you have seen that I've done the... okay, right now I'm just going to do position overdrive. I've already done setting on motherboard. What you can do is, I can set this. Okay, weakness it. No, per core. Yep. And to set the curve shaper. Now, just to illustrate to you what does curve optimizer and curve shaper does. Okay, I'm just going to bring in all this in. As you have weakness, right, based on just motherboard configuration without curve optimizer and without the curve shaper, it ran all the way up to 206 watt to your processor, which I told you is very unhealthy. Okay, right now I've actually done this. Now, just to show you how curve shaper and curve optimizer work, I will just save again and to load. Still based on motherboard declaration on the PBO limits. Okay, this will take some time, but right now I believe that the wattage drawn, right, will be lesser based on the fact that your curve optimizer and curve shaper have kicked in. So again, after configuration, right, it will take some time to load. For Windows to load, as is captioned and verified, this is normal. Right now, once again, I'm just going to load the Ryzen Master just to show you. Now, on Ryzen Master, right, you can see the curve optimizer, but not the curve shaper. See, this is still declared by the motherboard, as you can see, the previous settings. And you can see that the curve optimizer, right, I've set the first 8 core to -20 magnitude and the last 8 core -15. And curve shaper, sad to say, it doesn't show here. Hopefully that AMD will, refresh this Ryzen Master so that I can see the curve shaper. Now, I'm just going to run Cinebench and to show you again. Okay, just a short run. Okay. So as I run, right, take a look at the wattage. It will significant. Okay, it still remains around there. See, it drops. For the CPU power, it did not reach 206. Instead, it drops, which is good. You can leave this and run, not a problem. But the thing is that I'm still not comfortable with this. As in, like, the default should be 175 watt. And looking at the result, right, having curve optimizer and curve shaper run, though it's not ideal to declare by the motherboard, but you have a better result. As you can see, right, previously, this was motherboard settings without the curve optimizer, without the curve shaper. It's 41,475 in Cinebench. See? With curve optimizer, curve shaper, inclusive of the motherboard settings, you get 43,344. The wattage is at 181 watt. Okay, this is Cinebench. But as told you, right, okay, let me just type this motherboard with CO and CS. Now, CS is curve shaper, CO is curve optimizer. So you get this score. It's slightly lower. Yes, if you're comfortable to run this, go ahead. By all means, I won't stop you. And when you have triggered curve shaper and curve optimizer, right, one thing good about it is that when you run okay, the firm on any stress test or any 30 minutes 30 minutes stress test or the 10 minutes stress, right, you will see that your curve, or should I say the shape on your graph, right, will be very consistent. So your aim, my aim is not only to lower down the voltage, but to bring this clock frequency, right, which is this, okay, this is this, to a equilibrium, flat, consistent, stable. Okay, you can be challenging enough to set it as a night to pull as much as possible, but I wouldn't do so. See, this does an impact. This will tell me that the system will be stable. Okay, which is very nice. Okay, not gonna run this long, as this is just a demo. Now, my next step, as mentioned to you, right, if I were to run, right, I'm not comfortable with the voltage drawn. So I just want to, make it 170 or 171. So what I'll do is, it take a bit of time and patience. Okay, load to BIOS. Right, going to take some time to load to BIOS. It's always the case. Now, you have known, just to recap, the expo profile being set properly, the SOC U-call voltage I've set to 1.1, default is 1.2, you don't need that much. And for the V-call offset, okay, I've set to -100, which is 0.1 volt. Only ASRock board can do this. And set to level 2, which is a no-brainer, in between the high and the low. And on advanced, I've set the AMD CBS. And under SMU common option, I've set to cache. So it's always there. Don't need software application to determine whether to use cache or not to use cache, which is actually your CCDs 1 and 2. Next, I will go to AMD overclock. Now, as mentioned to you on the precision boost SoC Infinity Fabric Uncore OC mode, this is enabled. Okay, coming to the precision boost overdrive, you have weakness that have done the curve optimizer, which is based on the 2 CCDs. Okay, giving it a leverage of 20 instead of making it 30, 40 and such. Give it some breather so that there's enough voltage for your processor to pull and not to overstretch the under voltage. Curve shaper, I've explained this to you how it's been done. The magnitude again, use moderate from mid frequency to high and to max frequency. So all these are moderate. I do them in steps of 3, which is the highest at mid, highest magnitude pulled, which is -20. Then for the high frequency is -15, and the max frequency is 10. And all this value are negative, as you can see, negative. So this is what is done. Now, coming to the PBO limits, instead of using motherboard, which is no to me, okay, either you set it to auto or you set it to motherboard. But when you set to auto, right, also take note, run Cinebench to check on Ryzen Master, make sure that the CPU power is not drawing 170 watt and above. I'll just set it to manual. As described by AMD, the PPT limits, TDC and the EDC, right, are this value over here. Okay, I will plug all this value into it. Okay, 200. Okay, now take note, for ASRock motherboard, this is in milliwatt. If you want 200 to put 200 watt, you can just put 200. You have to add 3 more zeros, so this will be 200 watt, followed by TDC 160, which you can see over here. See, and the last is 225. 225. Now there are 2 more functions that you can set, but I won't encourage you to do so. A lot will ask you to do this, the scaler. Set it to manual and pump this to X10. Take a look at this. Okay, it overrides the default silicon health management to potentially achieve higher sustained frequency under CPU load. you are trying to implement, you know, what they call it, there is a protection but you break the protection, and you are implementing more vcore to your processor. So by setting this right, again, you're killing your processor in long run. I will not set this as scalar X10. I will just set it auto, leave it, okay, let the processor do the work. And for CPU boost clock override, yes, a lot of you fancy, put positive and you start pumping up the value, set up to 200 and such. I can tell you this will bring instability. You just see the numbers over there. What is 175 megahertz? You know, as compared to 1 gigahertz. So I wouldn't implement this at all to, you know, having non-stability on a 9950X or a 9950X3D, unless you're doing 8 cores or maybe 6 cores or 7 cores or 8, or, you know, lower than, I should say 8 cores, you can do this, no problem. But for me, it's redundant. So with all these settings right, okay, I will run. I'll just save and to boot to Windows. Now into Windows, I'll just load the Ryzen Master to show you the stats. Now as you can see here, curve optimizer I'm not touched. See with the -20 and -15, same thing to the curve shaper. The only thing that I touch is that I manually key in all the PPT, TDC with the default. As you can see over here, these are the default. Okay, default of AMD specs. So once I've done this right, again I'm going to run Cinebench and the firmware. Okay, now there are more tests to this. This is just an explanation of how I do it. You should be running Prime 95 once you've done the setting, or OCC test, OCCT test. Okay, so just a brief run with all the settings done right. You can take a look. The drawing, total drawage, see, is below 200, not above, which will lead to 168 or 169. See, I'm correct. So this will be a very good setting, but if you want to be more precise, right, which I test on it, first of all, I will be generous to give a bit more on the PPT, because this is just an allocation of the current. It doesn't mean that the current being drawn. So I just put it, as you can see, all the percentage over here, right, 96%, 100%, and 78. See, it's not even fully, I mean, it's not even, it has filled up the 160 ampere to pull from your EDC, which is the provisioning for the from the user, which pull the power from here. Okay, confusing, right? What I'm trying to say is this. Okay, this is the default. I will give it probably 130. Then this, right, TDC, as you say, upon user declare, is pulling 160 ampere. As you can see here, 100%. It's already drawing to the max out from the allocated amperage from the EDC. See, EDC is not it's not even utilizing it. So I will just pump this. And when you're pumping all these figures, right, just make sure that it doesn't reach 175 and such. 171 is still alright. So with this say, right, okay, now these are the settings. Let's do a one test run first. Okay, with the firmware. I just want to know the score, just to show you. Right, the last setting, probably I'll just do this. The last setting, right, is user declare PPT TDC and EDC with AMD specs. Okay, looking at score, see 42, 4, 5, 6. Now you must say that, hey Cleo, the PENCH, okay, typo here. Cleo, if I set to motherboard, right, it's gonna be like, you know, 1k more and so. True enough, but look at the wattage that is running as compared to this, okay, which is 168 if I'm not wrong. See, it's around there, 166 and so. Okay, let me just put the wattage. 160. Okay, I'll just put 166 watt. 166 watt. It's lower and it's below the recommended wattage, which is good. So you won't go overboard. Else for this, right, in the long run, yes, you can have a very good score, but is it worth it? I don't think so. And with this, right, as mentioned to you, I will reset all this value, which you will see. Okay, let me stop all this and go back to BIOS. Now it takes time and effort to, you know, do this setting, but once you've done it right, you will have a very stable PC. Now I'm just gonna boot to BIOS. Okay, they're gonna take some time. Now this is my setting upon test and error. Okay, we using things like this. Okay, the rest of the stuff I set, only this limit over here, I'll set this to 2300. Generous, you know, supply of current, but it doesn't mean that you're going to use up 230 watt. Then for this, right, I'll pull to 190. Okay, as you see 160, right, it's already pulling max to the bucket, and you can see that this 100%. So I'm just going to do this, and for this, right, I'm going to reduce down, which is to 200. Okay, instead of 225, I give it enough. So this is actually the provisioning. This is to allocate the provisioning for the TDC to pull. So with this say, right, let's see the final result. What happened then with all this? Now do take note that by doing this, right, I will sacrifice a bit of the max boost, but to me it's okay because I want consistency on the run, as in like throughout your whole application run and such, right, it's more stable. So I'll just do it this way. It's more vice versa. And later you'll see something fantastic because I have calculated and, you know, do all the adjustment properly so that you can see that the PBT, TDC, EDC, right, will be aligned nicely, all fully utilized. So that's my objective, my style. You can don't copy my style. I mean, if you don't like my style, you can don't use it. But I'm just saying that, you know, this will prolong the life of your processor, and in the long run, right, you will not have any issues running applications, and you can run games smoothly and such. As I've tested, even all this setting have done, right, when I plug my discrete graphic card, right, it will still run. So that's the thing. Okay. Now, see, these are my setting. 230 watt PPT, the TDC 190 ampere, and the EDC 200. Okay, right now I'm just going to run the Cinebench and Firmark. Let me just arrange this, all this property. Now, taking a look, final look. Okay, curve optimizer, I'm not touched. See, minus 20 and minus 15 per CCD core, and all the settings that I've done, not touched. So let me just run this. Okay, align this properly. Now, take a look at what happened when I run. Okay, I'll just take the score first. See, the overall power package is lesser than 200. The CPU power is 167. Okay, my peak speed is 5 gig. And my score, okay, let's go back to here. Alright, probably I just do it this way. Default 39K. Okay, motherboard with no CO, no nothing, is at 41,475. Motherboard PBO limits with curve optimizer and curve shaper 43 something, but the wattage is horrible. Then come to the declaration on the TDC and such, right? I mean, using default AMD spec is 42,456. Now with my declaration or declaration, my settings or my tweaks. Okay, let me just run this longer run and take down the scores. Okay, the scores for Cinebench is 42876. Okay, with PPT set at 230 watt, TDC at 190 ampere, and EDC at 200 ampere. Okay, take a look. When I run the 10 minutes run, I'm just going to let this run and just going to show you. As I mentioned to you, right, my max boost, right, will suffer a bit, but I don't really care about it because I want consistency. As you can see, right, the peak value is always at 5 gig. Then my run rate is at 167, 168. In fact, max is 170. So the voltage is located over here, 168. Okay, is below the recommended value by AMD. Okay, and looking at the graph, it's flat. I'll just let it run, then I'll talk about it. Now the last 3 minutes or so, take a look at the consistency. See, look at the percentage. It is hovering amber or yellow, not red, which are giving a lot of slack to each, complementing to each, where you have a stable flow over here, though there are some dips here and there, but it's alright, it's spaced off and it's quite consistent. And there are times whereby it did, hit SN9 to boost. As mentioned to you, I might suffer from the max boost, but that doesn't really bother me, based on the fact that I know the consistency of all the cores running at a peak of 5 gig and above. See, and also looking at the factor, the temperature is good, and the motherboard temperature is good. The VRM heatsink, the VRM is running well, not 60 and above, and all this are controllable. So I always have very good readings on this. You might crave for 5.1 gig, 5.2 gig in the expenses of increasing the CPU power, which is above 170. So as mentioned to you, right, if you were to hit anything above the default for prolonged usage, even at 180 watt, you might say that it's not very significant, but it is. It's gonna degrade your degrade your processor. Now, before I run this 10 minutes test, this was the score. Let's wait and see what's the end and what the score is like. Okay, so what matters to me most is not only the thermal, but consistency on your processor, how it perform and how it pull on the PPT, the TDC and EDC. Now PPT, you can generously give it sufficient, which I don't think I would pump 1000 watt. 230 is just nice because you can see the percentage over here. Okay, you have allocated this much to EDC. So PVC is pulling off from EDC, and EDC is fetching power from PBT. So you can see, right, all these are very uniform, 86, 86, 85, or 86. So this is actually how I play, you know, PBO2 and also the curve optimizer and the curve shaper. So to have a consistency, so that I will not, you know, feel that the processor is trying to pull, and when you're playing games or when you're doing work, right, when you try to pull too much, right, it will just crash. So this is the reason why I've done it this way. And last 5 seconds, see, it's still very consistent. And let's see the result. It's going to end here soon. So as mentioned to you, right, if you guys do not like the method that I do, right, you can presume on any of the, you know, any of the ways over here. It's up to you. See, 42715. It did not drop much. See, it's only a marginal of error. So with this say, I've concluded how I do the PBO2, the curve optimizer and the curve shaper. I always use it in a moderate way, non-aggressive, and to check the actual value before you conduct any runs. And to listen to out there, I don't know who, you know, some smart Alex telling you, oh, set to motherboard and such. In long run, right, you will definitely damage your processor, that's for sure. So this is my method of doing it. So hope you guys have actually learned something from it, and to practice safe PBO2 settings and the curve optimizer and the curve shaper. With this said, thank you very much for watching, and if you guys are new to my channel, do remember to subscribe and hit on the like button, and also to click on the notification bell button. Till then, take care, goodbye, see ya.